Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It's Wednesday, March 24th, 2021, 11:03 a.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair, Commissioner Gary Edwards. President in the boardroom, Commissioner Carolina Mejia. County Manager, Ramiro Chavez. Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell, and Economic Development Manager, Jenica Machado. We have a couple of guests, and guess we can do introductions. Start with gentleman in my upper right of my screen, P. Walk.
Paul Walk, yes.
Paul Walk. Okay, great. Nice to meet you, Paul. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Nice to meet you. I'm the president of Red Line Communications, and I'm contracted to the Nisqually Tribe. I do several communications projects for them.
Okay, and then Chris Olin.
Yes, my name is Chris Olin. I'm the IT director for the Nisqually Tribe, and I work closely with Paul Walk. Paul is our primary engineer.
Great. Thank you guys for being here. Nice to meet you. The public can follow along this on our Thurston County YouTube channel or by conference call 360-252-9020. The pin is 1234. This is I believe a 1-hour session with Nisqually Tribe regarding open access fiber broadband project. And I will let the county manager introduce the proposed agenda for this session.
Thank you, commissioners. I have been in touch with Jenica, and I asked to explore any opportunities there for a broadband project for rural areas of the county. And as you may be aware, that's part of the some of the elements in which the new federal money could be utilized. So the Nisqually Tribe has been proactive in implementing a open access fiber broadband project. And I asked Jenica to coordinate a presentation so for the board to hear where they are on this particular project. And again, this is just informational for you today. There is no action required at this point from the board. Jenica, you want to say a couple words?
Yes, thank you, Ramiro. So I've had the pleasure of speaking with Paul and Chris on a couple occasions now to learn more about this open access fiber feasibility study. And so through these different conversations, it seemed like this would be a great opportunity for the board to learn more about what this feasibility study came up with and where they're at in their process with the Nisqually Tribe.
Okay, we're turning it to Paul then? Or?
Yep, who's going to take the lead from the Nisqually Tribe?
Oh, go ahead and take the lead, please.
Okay, so many of you may not know that the Nisqually Tribe has been heavily involved in fiber optic communications and broadband delivery. Going back about 3 years ago, I was contracted with the tribe to create a fiber optic construction company. And this company today is very successful. We do work throughout the state. We're actually preparing to go into Idaho and Oregon as well. We do emergency restoration as well as aerial and underground construction via directional drill, trench, and again, aerial construction as well. So after we developed that company, the tribe was exploring ways of bringing broadband services to its residents, something that they had found a challenging effort over about 10 years. So working with Chris, we started to interview the existing communications providers, Comcast, Wave Communications, CenturyLink Communications, and we invited them out and asked for their 5-year projections to see if they had any intentions on delivering any services. To be clear, there was no broadband services being delivered on the reservation at this point in time. It didn't seem to matter how we incentivized the offering to work with them together, bringing money to the table, whatever it was. There was no intent on bringing the services or the investment to the tribe. So I conducted a feasibility study that went along with this, and it turned out that the way it was going to happen would be self-performing. So the tribe approached CURB agency for a partial loan/grant, and the tribe put in quite a few dollars themselves. And we engineered, permitted, and constructed a GPON fiber to the home project to all tribal members on the reservation, which was, if you're not familiar with GPON, it's gigabit passive optical network, and it delivers over a gig capacity to every home, which in our current market is about as good as it gets as far as technology goes. So after implementing that, the tribe decided that if they were seeing this kind of issue in delivering broadband services to their own community, what's the outside community seeing? And so applaud to them, they decided to go after additional funding from CURB to assess that. And we are just about in conclusion of that study, where we have evaluated rural Thurston County and what services are being provided or lack thereof, and what opportunities exist to provide an open access network. And for those of you that don't know what an open access network is, it's where the tribe, in this case, the tribe or the community, would build the fiber optic infrastructure that the communications network would operate on. So you think about it as like a highway, but they wouldn't be supplying any cars. It's just an access. And the tribe would be maintaining this, building it and maintaining it, and offer it for lease to a multitude of providers, anybody that wanted that. Like I stated, we're at towards the tail end of this study. We have done insight surveys, door-to-door surveys throughout the areas that we've studied. We've met with the towns that we could get a hold of that were willing to participate, and we really came to a good understanding of what exists versus what we believe should exist, and what is served or underserved by definition created by the FCC. Anything that's 25.3, 25 meg down and 3 meg up is considered served. Anything less than that is underserved, and if they don't have services, then they're considered non-served. So that becomes really important when identifying grants that are available. They all basically work off of that criteria. So that's where we're at right now. Did provide a little 4-page summary that kind of goes through this project and where we sit today. I just included the executive summary, first page from the study itself. And for any of you that want to read along on what an open access network is, we go into depth on what that is and how that works and why that's important. And just as a brief, about 90% of your network costs are your infrastructure itself. So when it comes to why broadband hasn't been delivered to rural America, well, that's the reason. The cost of the infrastructure is so high. And when you're working on a return on investment type of business, you're obviously going to go where that return is the highest. And to get to these rural markets, even if there's 200, 300, or 1,000 people there, the cost of getting your network to them can be quite high. And in order to keep up with today's broadband requirements, the only way to truly deliver that is via fiber. And the existing networks that are out there today are primarily copper, which would be Twisted Pair, the good telephone company uses, or coax that the cable companies use. And those do not have the capacity to deliver the types of services that we're talking about that's going to become an everyday thing in everyone's home. Just to give you an example, when the FCC says that service home is 25 meg down and 3 meg up, I mean, you can't even hardly stream 4K on your TV with that kind of a service, let alone have children trying to do their school services and parents working online and everything that this pandemic brought to the surface. It's very difficult to do with what they're calling broadband. So we expect that to change, and the FCC is holding meetings on how to address that criteria as it evolves. But we're going to see this go up. I believe that we should be considered 100 meg minimum country at this point. We should have 100 meg in every home in order to meet the requirements that we have. So putting in the GPON network is something that you're seeing every provider go to now. Any new projects going on, some of you may have heard a lot about Nisqually, who bought Frontier. They've done a $500 million investment in our region, and that is primarily about 90% all GPON fiber to the home. Wave Broadband, they're doing the same thing. They're focusing on GPON fiber to the home now. So everybody that's in this industry has realized that this is the ultimate medium to supply, and it's also the cheapest to put in place if you have the fiber optics. So it's what we put in at Nisqually, and if we can do it there, and we did this in 13 months, we permitted, we engineered and constructed within 13 months. So we're pretty proud of how well that project went, and we stayed on budget. So we believe that we have the capacity to do the same for this project. And if we have that screen up, there's a map of what we have developed for this project, which is leaving the Nisqually Tribe and heading west on Yelm Highway. And that takes us over to Henderson Boulevard in Olympia, where we head south towards the airport. And one of the reasons we chose this path is we've had meetings with the Port of Olympia. They have a business park going in out in that direction. Now, that alone wasn't our decision to go this way. We also did on-site surveys with several of the businesses that exist out there and found they are unhappy with the services that they have. They are inadequate, unreliable, and too expensive. So we feel we can change that. When we head south on Old 99 from that business park, we go directly down towards Tenino, and I'm sure many of you are aware that Thurston County EDC is working with Tenino on an agricultural park down there. So we would be providing fiber services right by that agricultural park, and we would be heading over towards Rochester, Grand Mound to eventually hit the Chehalis Tribe. I won't go into too much detail about the Chehalis Tribe. We have a meeting with them in just a couple hours, and they are very interested in participating in this project, but we're interested in providing services to their residential and business community as part of this plan, and also sharing some intergovernmental services between the two tribes, which would be a pretty unique thing. I'm pretty excited about that opportunity. But there's a multitude of businesses that exist from this. So when you look at this, you're looking at what's called a backbone. And so that would be 144 or 288. That'd be one of those two that would be going along this entire path. And then you would have laterals that would build off of this, going to businesses, residential communities, and things of that nature. And that's where we're looking for each of the communities along these paths to work with us and help identify where those need to go. We look at this as part one of a project that can grow like a spider web over time with each community's help with assessing priorities. So that's the project in a nutshell. We have done all the pre-engineering analysis along this route. We've discovered all the permits required, which is something that I do. Anyway, I do a lot of engineering and permitting in the region, and we've put a cost to this, and we have a timetable schedule for this. So within 2 years, we could have this completely built out, engineered, permitted, and constructed, and ready to go. And what we've done with pricing that you'll see here is just, this is the cost if we self-perform. If we go after a grant, so the tribe is the lead applicant, and we use Nisqually Communications as the construction company in order to qualify for most grants. That would be a self-performing grant where we would provide receipts and perform it at cost. So this is that option. And the other option is we could take this out to bid and go that route as well. We're still in the infancy of evaluating whether or not the tribe is going to move forward. That's going to be where Chris plays a heavy role, and we take this to council, and they'll be the ones that make the ultimate decision. It's our responsibility to make this feasible, and right now it is looking very feasible. We're still having meetings as well with some anchor institutions along the route and assessing those as well, but we believe that this type of network should be built as like a community type of network where we have the community's involvement, whether that is a board that's created or a steering committee. That's something that that's still being evaluated as well, but a steering committee is something that came up as a very viable option of having a community leader sitting on that steering committee from each one of these communities that can help evaluate areas of priority of where we bring this network next. And they could also help us apply for continued grant funding to extend this network. But we're pretty excited about it. We think the open access network is the only way to go. We don't believe that we can solve the problem that we've had for so many years with the same traditional carriers who are based on ROI. I feel like if the county or the state depends on an existing carrier, a PUD, whatever the case may be, if they run on an ROI only, we're going to wind up back in the same boat that we've been so many times, which is they're going to take this network where it makes them the most money, and the areas that need it the most are going to be overlooked. And so that's really what we're hoping to avoid with this open access network and continued grant funding. So in a nutshell, that is our proposal that we're working on internally, and we're happy to share that with you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I see Michael Mason, you've joined us. Can you introduce yourself? We haven't met you before.
Hi, I'm Mike Mason. I'm the Economic Development Senior Manager for the Nisqually Tribe.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. Okay, I'll go, I guess, around to the board members and see if there's questions for Paul or the team. Start with Commissioner Mejia.
Yes, so my first question is in relation to what would be the roadblocks going forward with this project?
Funding is always the biggest roadblock. We are looking at this project as being dependent on grant funding. In order for the tribe to approve the project as viable to move forward, we're going to have to show that that the funding is available. So we're assessing funding opportunities that exist, and for some of those, we're waiting for NOFAs to be released. But I would say that's our biggest obstacle. Chris and Mike, feel free to weigh in.
Yeah, Chris here. Yeah, I don't know if too many obstacles. With building the network out. I know that like Paul already stated, we have some work to do on our end if the tribal council is to accept the project and cut us loose. I mean, Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, like we always emphasize, funding is the number one issue. With the big monies that are coming out right now because of the COVID money, there's a lot of communications money coming out. So we're focusing as much as we can to see if we can hit that. The fortunate part is I have a dual role. The tribe allowed me to be part of Department of Commerce, the CURB board, Community Economic Revitalization Board. And CURB is doing an extremely good job of funding for the communications, especially the feasibility studies. Plus, we've been working out with a lot of philanthropy people and looking almost every angle we can to find funding for this project. We know it's both a tribal project, but it's mostly an outside community of the tribe from here to Chehalis. So it's that in between that we're trying to get the funding for. And I think there's a pretty good possibility on one of the entities on the funding. I'm on the committee, and they're looking at the template that Nisqually's put together in communications, and I'm hoping they're using us as the lead, and that our process on how we've done things, that they'll let us be the template. And if we're fortunate to be, that I'm thinking that we might get funding also, be the first ones in line. But all that is wait and see, because I know all those fundings don't hit till this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mejia, anything else?
Yes, I had a question in regards to the timeline of this project, or just an estimate of on how long this project would last from start to finish.
We've got two proposals. The one that I've shared with you today is about 95% aerial. Given the funding opportunity, we prefer to go underground. We think it's a more secure network, and that for long-term viability, a multitude of reasons, going underground is just a better way to go. If we were to go underground, the cost of this would go up nearly double, which is why you see so many providers accessing the poles, is the cost of the construction. Timeline on the aerial, it really comes down to permitting. We have structural analysis that would have to be done on some of the transmission poles along this route. That's what we call SA, and that could be 6 months before we hear back from PSE on, whether or not those poles would be approved for us to access, or if there is construction that needs to take place to replace those poles with more structurally sound poles. If we went underground, we would bypass that structural analysis and we would just do right-of-way permits. So even though it costs more money to go underground, the timeline is actually a little better. And with the ability that we have to perform underground and aerial construction, the timeline for both of these, aerial or underground, we're estimating at right around 2 years. The construction portion wouldn't be nearly that long. It's the engineering and permitting portion, primarily the permitting.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
Paul, who did you permit through on your project on the reservation?
On the reservation, we have a gap between the upper and lower portion of the reservation. So we did have to go through Thurston County to access that region. Outside of that, we actually are developing a permitting department at the tribe itself. We don't currently have one. We're working on a franchise agreement and a permitting department to go with that. So on this route, we also had to permit there was a portion that had some PSE poles, so we had to do some pole applications for that as well. So the tribe did establish their franchise agreement with PSE and a pole attachment agreement in the underground. I believe we had an emergency because of the COVID, an emergency permit for the underground portion with Thurston County.
Okay, thanks.
Ramiro?
Yeah. You said you provided this morning an attachment that includes some cost estimates. It is a 2-page. I don't know who provided this. Can you walk us through what this estimates really includes and what is the intent of this information?
So this information I've put together for the feasibility study that we've done, and it outlines the cost of the project in its entirety, but at cost. We're assuming that this would be a publicly funded or prevailing wage project, so that's been considered. We have the engineering and permitting costs associated. We have the construction. You'll have aerial and underground that you'll see in here. Make-ready costs is what you'll see on when you access a telephone pole. You have a space that you have to work in within the communication space, and you have to maintain a distance from existing providers. They like you to stay 12 inches if possible. Sometimes that's not possible when accessing a pole, so there's what we call make-ready involved to move the existing attachees, and there's a cost associated with that. So we have the make-ready, we have the tree trimming costs, we have aerial permits. We're going to have some WASDOT right-of-way permits. We have a bridge, aerial bridge crossing. It's actually a highway crossing, the interstate highway crossing via aerial. We have a couple bridge crossings over some creeks. So all of these are different permits that we need. We have traffic control outlined as well. We have the power make ready, where we just anticipate what the power make ready is going to be. The way that the power companies operate, if They have to do structural analysis on those transmission poles. So, if there for any reason it doesn't come back, which usually what it is the fiber's so light, the pole just don't pass with what it has on it existing. But it gives them an opportunity to get that pole replaced for free at no cost to them, even though it's a pre-existing condition. The next provider on pays for the upgrade. So we have to account for those costs. So all your permitting, we have some BNSF railroad permits that we have to acquire. And then you'll just see the underground construction costs, the pulling of the fiber. We have some directional drill costs that we have to do. So you'll see that outlined along with the communication vaults, the fiber itself, the splicing. Everything from soup to nuts for this project is detailed right here on this spreadsheet. This is the cost.
So is that 5.5 million? Is that what you have thereabouts?
Yes. So what we did is I added an incidental cost of 20% at the bottom, and that's how we come to that.
Okay. And if going through the process, if there's a partnership within the counties right away, I would assume that you will probably seek a franchise agreement with the county, correct?
Sure.
That's all the questions that I have for now.
I guess I'll just say I like the idea of partnering with the tribe to provide a service throughout the community. So, I mean, that's my initial response to it.
Robin? Anything? No? Jenica? No? Yeah, it's very exciting to work with a local group rather than big companies that aren't going to meet the needs of the broader community. So it seems like a pretty exciting proposal. If we can help, let us know. Not sure what you'll need from the county, working through the, obviously permitting and whatnot, but.
We appreciate any support that we can get. Letters of support may become very viable as well. So yeah, if we can continue to keep in contact, that's the best solution for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
For the letters of support, who would we need to address that to?
Well, that will be determined based on the grants that we identify, and if that grant actually will consider letters of support. Some do, some don't. So that's what I say. If we keep in touch along the process, that would be great.
Yes, I'm with the other two commissioners on this, where I'm very supportive of it, and how we've seen just the inequities COVID has shown us, especially when it comes to broadband access. And I think this is a very important project for our rural communities as well as for the tribes. So I'm very excited on the way forward on this.
So I don't know a lot about this area. I'll just be right up front. But obviously, what you say with the pandemic, there's been a lot of talk about, the schools and the need to get this type of service to each residence. And I heard, about the work that the tribe was looking at. And then I've also heard chatter that the port was talking about what can they do, and the public utility district was, I've heard a lot of chatter of people talking, and then the state legislature, there's bills. I sit on the legislative steering committee. So I guess you're probably closer to all this than I am. Have you heard other groups working, on parallel tracks, or is there a way to work together collaboratively or how do you see the whole kind of puzzle fitting together? Is everybody's racing to take federal stimulus dollars and invest in this? It seems to be broad, bipartisan type of, support for this type of infrastructure investment.
Well, we did meet with the Port of Olympia. That's how this project started. We met with them and we asked them what their intentions were, because we're very familiar with the fact that, the port's received operating authority and they've been jumping at it throughout the region. And at the time that we met with them, they were one of the ports that had no plans on moving forward at that point in time. They weren't convinced it was a viable option for them. But when we discussed that we were interested in possibly partnering with them to move forward with this project, they were interested in that because they saw that we had our feet in the water and at least knew what we were doing, which is kind of a comforting feeling, I guess, if you're on the outside looking at investing something and you got to convince your constituents that it's worthwhile. So they decided, or I should say we jointly decided, but through their suggestion that the tribe take the lead on the onset, they stated that the process of even getting permission to move forward with a feasibility study could take them a year or two. And we obviously did not want to wait that long. So we took that advice and moved forward with the feasibility study by approaching CURB and moving from there. We have had communication with them since, and we are still all on the same page that working together is stronger than working alone. So we do owe them another follow-up meeting at this point. The only reason we haven't gone too far is because now that we're at the end of this feasibility assessment, we really need to start evaluating things on the tribal side. And again, that's where Chris and Mike and the tribe come into play. And if it's decided that this is viable and that we should move forward, then we can start having some more serious meetings. But the last one we did have with them, I can't remember the lady's name. I'm sorry, but she's, I guess, the new director. She was placing some dollars aside to go towards this project, which we were excited to hear. And she was very supportive. So we're hoping that that continues to be the case. We did hear from, I believe it was Jenica on our last updated call, that the Thurston County PUD was looking at this as an option now. We haven't had an opportunity to speak to them to know what direction they're looking at, but we're obviously very open to that. This is not something that Nisqually is looking at doing because we said, hey, you know what, here's an opportunity to make a bunch of money. Because the reality is it's not going to happen. This is a network that is going to maintain itself. It'll make enough to keep the people employed, to maintain the network. And that's just about it. If it was created to make money, then it wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would put the tribe in the same boat as the providers and how they interact with the customers that we've seen. We don't want that.
I'd like to interject, if I could, Paul. On one of the meetings I had yesterday on the communications, the difference of what we're working on as compared to a lot of other entities, including other ports, we're creating an open access. An open access, can you explain the difference, Paul, on the two?
Yeah, I did before you, I believe before you joined, Mike, we went into what an open access was. Open access.
Okay. So most of the entities out there are doing the closed system where they're making for profit for that entity. This is an open access. So as we go through each community, it offers the opportunity for that community to provide for its area without additional costs. Being on open access creates more economic diversity and opportunities within those communities. Closed access makes it expensive for people to get on those systems. So the system that we're putting together, that Paul's designed, that the tribe's getting behind, is really driven for the community. That's what I would just want to interject.
The tandem project going alongside of this at the tribe, which is a technology center. And that technology center is a co-location facility that would support this network. It would have multiple rack space for providers to come in and access the fiber from that location. Now, obviously, existing providers can access it, throughout the network as well. We can provide points of presence for them to interconnect with us, but this is really part of the reason of this technology center is they can come co-locate in our facility with us, and they can put their network equipment in that facility, and we would have it caged off and locked for them that they would only have access to. So it would be a secure central office location for them. But we've really done a lot of thought this through. I have a lot of experience with open access networks and how successful they can be if operated correctly.
Maybe as just one follow-up, and I don't know, Paul, maybe you've already talked to him, but have you talked with our library, our regional library folks?
No, I haven't. I'm having a difficulty right now receiving feedback from the school districts. I've sent some surveys over, and I've spoken to the directors there, and I haven't, but I will definitely reach out to the library.
Yeah, I just think it might be something they might want to get involved in. So just.
Yeah, especially if they have public access, internet access, if they have computers for public use, I can see that being very beneficial.
I would think your schools would sign on, at least endorsing the concept. And, so if you're going to send a letter off to whomever about funding possibilities, I think it would behoove them to be signatories on that letter, and which that's my initial thought that we could do right away is get as much backing behind you as possible to move this thing forward sooner than later, because like you say, you've already got your foot in the water, and you might become more eligible for dollars before someone else on this move.
Well, we appreciate all the support we can get for this. I mean, every bit of support is going to help it become more viable on our end.
Talking about support, how can the county partner in this, or what can we do to support?
And I think that's been a conversation that we've pointed towards, but we haven't really gotten into. Outside of the letters of recommendation, we really don't know what else is required at this point until we know what grants we're going after. Financial support is always great, but we know it's not easy. So, outside of that, Mike, you or Chris have anything to add?
The support really helps a lot. I think a lot of times when we're going out and applying for grants, when you have more than one entity, if you can do a dual grant, where it's the county and the tribe, sometimes we get more attention. Sometimes we get that extra approval because there's a joint effort going on. But until we know what all the parameters are going to be on the new monies that are coming out, we don't know how we can team up, or we don't know how this can work out yet, because all the policies and procedures are still being laid out as we speak.
One of the grants is a public-private partnership grant opportunity that there's $200 million set aside for. So, that could be something that we discuss as we evaluate opportunities.
I would think you've got a sympathetic voice there, maybe with the new Interior Secretary, as you move forward. I really do. I think there's a lot of potential here, because you can think about the different school districts that are serving tribal members, everywhere as well, too. So I think you got a pretty good concept going here. You just need to gather up a bunch of signatures of those endorsing that concept and ship it off. I think you'll be surprised what's available.
Okay, excellent.
No, I agree.
I concur as well.
Okay.
Maybe next steps when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead, Romero.
Thank you very much. This has been a very enlightening, at least from my point of view, a briefing. As you heard, creates an opportunity for the Board of County Commissioners and the county as a whole to be partner on this. The board is considering setting aside some of the American Recovery Rescue Plan, I believe, funding to address some of the broadband needs in the rural area. So I will work with Jenica, since she is the conduit with you, as to how we can formalize this partnership between the county and the Nisqually Tribe. Along the way, if you see any opportunities of a letter of support, please send us a draft, and we'll certainly process that with the Board of County Commissioners. As you hear, there's a lot of energy from the board members, and certainly from my point of view, there's a great opportunity for partnering with the Nisqually Tribe, because at the end of the day, it's a service the rural areas of Thurston County citizens, they need this facility. So I'll work with Jenica, and she will be working with you to start formalizing a potential partnership here in the near future.
Okay, excellent. And then as that progresses, we'll definitely bring that, to our tribal council's attention.
Right, and I believe we have a joint meeting between the council, tribal council, and the Board of County Commissioners next week, and this will be a great opportunity to have this partnership discussion.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you, Chris, Mike, Paul. Great to meet you guys. And we'll be back working on this, hopefully, together.
Thanks for the invite today.
All right, thank you. It was nice to meet everybody.